What's up everybody, Maran here for another weekly update. So there's lots of exciting news to go over here this week, but before I get into all the news, I first want to mention I'll be doing my usual weekly live stream this Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern time, so join if you can. It's always a great time hanging out and talking cars with all of you. But anyway, getting into all the news here this week, we have some excellent news here for the Save the Manuals crowd, just anyone that likes enthusiast vehicles, because BMW has confirmed that the 2024 Z4 will be coming with a manual transmission option, which is awesome. You know, we had our suspicions back whenever the Super was announced with the manual and that came, that like, well, of course the BMW is probably going to get it as well. But I mean, you know, the Germans in the past have been some of the first to nix the manual transmissions, assuming that, you know, oh, better performance is what everyone wants, and so therefore we're going to just do automatics. But, you know, and honestly, if there was going to be a manual for the Z4, I thought it'd be on the 4-cylinder, because in Europe, there is already a 4-cylinder Z4 with a manual that I guess was discontinued recently, though, because there wasn't very many sales for that. But that's not the case here for the US version. In the US here, it's going to be offered with the M40i version, the 6-cylinder version, just like in the Supra. And while it is a ZF transmission, just like in the Supra as well, it's got some different tuning here to give it a familiar BMW feel. And they already let a few people do some first drives in it, and apparently it feels very much like an M2 transmission, all those others, and you know, should, you know, be pretty consistent there. But they also, for the Z4s, get a few other unique changes here beyond a regular automatic Z4. And these are changes that are exclusive to the manual version. So they're going to be getting a staggered wheel setup with 19s in the front and 20s in the rear. It also gets the rear end from the M240i, including its torque vectoring active differential. There's also retuned steering for sharper responses, retuned adaptive dampers, and a stiffer front anti-roll bar. And so, you know, it's actually going to be a little bit of a sharper car in addition to the manual transmission. So it will be, you know, the sportiest version potentially of the Z4 here, which is unfortunate for those that do want all those enhancements with an automatic. You're going to have to get the manual to get those enhancements, but I think it's a cool extra way to kind of increase the appeal of the Z4 there. And so, yes, we don't have any pricing yet, but they're going to start production in the first quarter of 2024. And they also said there's no limit on production either. Now, you know, I don't know how many they can build, but, you know, they're not capping it at least, which is great. So hopefully if you go to your dealer and you order one, they'll build it without issue, and hopefully that'll also, you know, keep some of the markups and stuff at bay, or non-existent if you know, we get really lucky. But yeah, so I mean, this is fantastic news. Now please, anyone with the means that's ever remotely like the Z4, go order a manual one, support the cause, and, you know, send the message that yes, we want a manual. Because if they see that there's strong manual demand here for the Z4, not only could that justify the Z4 sticking around, because it's already kind of on the rocks and maybe it'll go away regardless, and this is a final hurrah potentially, but, you know, if nothing else, it would send the message that, hey, we still want manuals. I think that the M3 manual and the M2 manual have sent that message pretty well already, but this would be a nice extra little driver. Be like, hey, keep the manuals around. Porsche has, you know, seen the light, and, you know, now everything they do is a manual basically, at least as an option for many of these, you know, collector things. But so it'd be great to see BMW follow the same footsteps there. But anyway, so great, fantastic news, best news of the week here. In some other Roadster news here, though, Mercedes-AMG has revealed the 2024 SL63 SE Performance. And yes, that long name means it gets the crazy same plug-in hybrid setup as the S-Class and the AMG GT 4-door got, meaning it starts with a 4-liter twin-turbo V8 that alone does 603 horsepower and 627 pound-feet of torque, and then is assisted by an electric motor in the rear that bumps total output to 804 horsepower and 1,047 pound-feet of torque, almost double the torque of a regular SL63. As a result of this insanity, and with the help of all-wheel drive, it'll get to 60 miles per hour in just 2.8 seconds and go on to a 196 miles per hour top speed. For another type of insanity here, the weight gains of the other e-performance versions, if those actually carry over, which hasn't been confirmed. Mercedes hasn't confirmed any weight figures for this yet, but if it does, you know, have the same kind of weight gain, it's the same battery, same components as, again, those other two models. This could end up weighing over 4,700 pounds for a two-door, small-ish Roadster, which is wild, and would also put it about 1,000 pounds heavier than like a Porsche 911 Turbo S, which is kind of one of the competitors to this. So pretty hefty there. And even with all this weight, the battery isn't even that big, doing a hilariously low 8 miles of range on the easier WLTP test cycle. So once the EPA puts it through its test, it'll probably be 5 miles here is what it'll be rated at in the States. But anyway, part of that weight gain is also a result of the car having two transmissions, like we've seen in other high-end e-performance you know, models from AMG here, meaning you get a 9-speed automatic for the engine and a 2-speed for the electric motor. which does add some extra complexity. I'm, nervous about how these things will age, but it's awesome, especially new here, and we'll just have to wait and see. And of course, it's all the other top shelf Mercedes hardware, including their ride control suspension, reversible steering, mechanical limited slip differential, and carbon ceramic brakes. Plus, there's unique wheels, styling, including the less than elegant charge door there and the rear bumper, unfortunately. And there's also some interior touches as well. Unlike other recent Mercedes debuts, this one is actually coming next year. It is a 2024 model year. We were getting other stuff where they wouldn't even tell us the model year, and they were like, oh, this is coming in a few years. And it's like, why are you even telling us about this? But this is actually coming soon, which is great. There's no pricing for it yet, though, still, but expected to start over $200,000. And I mean, with that kind of performance, it's justified. 1,047 pound-feet of torque. I don't think anyone's going to bat an eye at that price tag, especially people that are actually seriously considering these. So anyway, great to see that. Genesis has also shown off a couple pictures here of the refreshed 2025 Genesis G80. And you can see it gets a revised front end and rear bumper, along with the same infotainment improvements we saw on the GV80, meaning a big 27-inch OLED display that handles double duty as the gauge cluster and the infotainment system. The dash has also been redesigned so that it's not as far of a reach there as the old screen, although there's still a controller wheel by the shifter for those that prefer doing that instead of getting the fingerprints on the screen. There's also the revised HVAC controls there, and there will be some new colors as well. And there's no other info on it or mechanical specs yet. They'll most likely be all carryover, but we'll have to wait and see. But anyway, it seems like a great little refresh here so far, and yeah, looking forward to hearing more. But Cadillac has also put out their very thin, I guess you could call it a reveal, but it's more like a teaser here. 2 pictures and basically no other info on what is the 2026 Cadillac Vistiq. It'll slot between the Lyriq and the Escalade IQ, presumably replacing the XT6 in the lineup as Cadillac goes all electric here. That hasn't been confirmed, but it's assumed that this is going to be what's replacing the XT6 here. And so all Cadillac's saying here really is that it's a distinctive and innovative luxury 3-row SUV designed for the modern family. And it really just looks like a smaller version of the Escalade IQ, which is good news for people that are interested in this and want to save some money. But, I feel like Escalade IQ buyers might not love the fact you can get a pretty similar look for obviously what's going to be, something less than an Escalade IQ pricing. But anyway, for that reason, this should be a pretty big hit among the people that are wealthy enough to be able to afford these, but can't quite afford an Escalade IQ. But I can't imagine these being cheap either. And so anyway, we'll be hearing more details on it next year. But even at that point, it'll probably be over a year away from even then, because this is a 2026 model year, which means we're not going to see these at least until, sometime in 2025. So I guess it's good to give people a heads up if you're planning a luxury car purchase in the next couple of years. This either tells you, hey, the XT6 has got a few more years to live, or save your pennies for the coming Vistiq here, because that is going to be on the horizon here, and so plan accordingly, I suppose. So it's nice to get the heads up, and it doesn't upset me that this is so far away, but it's also just kind of crazy. We're hearing about 2026 stuff and we're not even yet in 2024. But anyway, interesting to see that. And for one other new EV that we're getting just one picture of so far, just a teaser image here, is of the Porsche Macan EV, which I don't believe we have a model year for this either, but they're saying it's coming next year, so I'm assuming 2025 model year is what we're getting for the Macan EV. But anyway, it's our first official look at the interior here, which they say will introduce a new infotainment system when it debuts in 2024. We do at least get a few specs as well, but it gets a fully digital 12.6-inch digital gauge cluster and a 10.9-inch touchscreen that thankfully still is integrated into the dashboard there, not just tacked on top, which I actually appreciate. That touchscreen is an Android-based system with Google Play Store built in to download apps, but unlike General Motors, this system thankfully retains Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, because crucially, I think Porsche said like 85% of Porsche buyers are Apple users. And, these Android systems don't interact very well with Apple devices. And so I think that's very nice that they've continued to include that. There's another 10.9-inch touchscreen available for the passenger as well. They can stream video over there if they want. It'll also be the first Porsche to have an augmented reality head-up display. And then as far as mechanicals, the fastest version at launch will do about 603 horsepower and 737 pound-feet of torque, they're saying. And it'll also charge at an impressive 270 kilowatt charge rate thanks to its 800-volt electrical system and a 100 kilowatt hour battery. And you'll be able to get reversible steering and an air suspension as well. And that's about all we know so far, but it sounds very promising. It's on that PPE platform that Porsche developed jointly with Audi, so Audi will get a version, most likely a next-gen Q5 e-tron or something like that they end up calling it. Might be the Q6 e-tron, I don't know. But regardless, there's going to be an Audi coming as well, which will hopefully maybe be a little bit more affordable than the Porsche here. But the Macan EV sounds very promising so far, and very cool to see that little teaser. The CEO of Scout Motors, which is the brand that's making a comeback, the rugged, SUV brand that was, from way back when. They're making a resurgence here thanks to Volkswagen, who owns the rights to them now. Anyway, they talked with Automotive News, the CEO of Scout Motors, this week about the progress of their first vehicle, which would be an SUV. And so he said, the design of the product is, I would say, 85, 90, 95% of the way there. Proportions readily dialed in, exterior design dialed in, which is interesting. He's not super confirmed on the percentage of progress there. But anyway, he also added that the interior isn't quite as far along, but he's planning to try out a full-size interior model this week. So they're making some good progress here. Sounds like they're getting pretty close. He revealed that early prototypes will actually start drives in early 2024 here, and confirmed that they'll be built in South Carolina, and that while Magnus Steyr will help with chassis development, it's still a totally brand new from the ground up platform. The Scout will be building the vehicle for themselves, and that it'll be 100% capable, American, robust, full platform. And the SUV is scheduled to debut, they're saying, in the third quarter of 2024. But don't get too excited about that. They're saying a truck version will come 6 months later, but neither of these were actually going to go on sale anytime soon. Even though they're going to be debuting next year, or at least the one will debut next year, production won't begin until, they say, late 2026. So when you see this thing, like the LA Auto Show next year, forget about it for like 2 years after that, because this is, again, at least 3 years away, which is just wild. But anyway, good to get a progress update at least. But anyone who's antsy for this, you're definitely going to have to relax, because it's going to be a while. But anyway, in some other EV news here, Michigan energy company Our Next Energy is one of these new battery startups I reported on last year. They were the ones that made headlines with the Gemini prototype battery they had, which was a dual chemistry battery that drove 752 miles in the middle of Michigan winter, by the way, in a Tesla Model S. And so that was huge. And so, but I think partially because of that, BMW has also partnered with them now. And so they have another impressive feat here to announce. So they're now putting the battery into an iX. They want to just do a test to see how they could extend the range in BMW. And so in the iX, it did 608 miles on the WLTP test cycle, which is admittedly on a dyno. So it's not as challenging as actually driving it on real roads in the middle of winter. And obviously this illustrates also the iX. I don't know if it's the same battery size or, what the constraints were as far as the details there. But, this vehicle, the iXs can do up to 392 miles is what they're rated at on the WLTP test cycle. Once again, real range is going to be less than that. But anyway, doing, the same kind of testing there, you're still getting over 200 more miles of range out of this unique battery chemistry here. And it's pretty interesting considering it just uses a cheaper lithium ion phosphate pack for the propulsion version of the electricity. But then the other part of the battery is a higher density setup that you couldn't use to power the vehicle. So it runs through a DC to DC converter to go into the lithium ion phosphate battery and then provide propulsion. But it's so high density, it's like a range extender battery built into your battery pack, which is pretty ingenious if they can actually scale this up. And so doing this split chemistry, they say, also allows them to use 20% less lithium, 60% less graphite, and 75% less nickel. So much better with those finite resources. And unfortunately, it's still not ready for production. They're saying they're still trying to work out how to scale it well. And so I really hope that is a hurdle they can overcome here, hopefully with BMW's help and the help. I don't know why other companies aren't just all over them, because, Toyota has talked about having a 600-mile range EV here in the next couple of years too. Maybe they've kind of reverse engineered this or taken the same idea and ran with it on their own. That's my only idea as far as how everyone else is getting 600 miles, unless Toyota's come up with something else that's similarly impressive here. But anyway, this shows, though, that we already have, obviously they have to, again, get it ready for production, but they have 600-mile EVs that are, being proven here already in the end of 2023. Give it a few more years. Hopefully they work out these kinks, and, range anxiety will be a thing of the past. And so, very impressive to hear that, and yeah, looking forward to seeing how that develops, and we'll see, you know, who does this battery evolution first, if they get to it before Toyota does, or Toyota beats them to the punch. We'll see. But sadly, the last little bit of EV news here is one cool little EV that's being discontinued is the Honda E, which is really a bummer. I've always loved the E. I was hoping they'd bring it here to the States. It was only sold in Europe, you know, everyone seemed to love the styling for the most part, but people didn't love the relatively high price tag, with these starting around $36,000 when you convert it from, you know, the euro, and it also had only 134 horsepower in that cheapest version, and only 137 miles of range, and even the faster version only had like 152 horsepower, so it wasn't much better. So it was a tough sell, even in Europe, where small, short-range electric hatchbacks actually are viable. It was just that, like, the Volkswagen ID3, which is available over there, gave you, you know, way more range for basically the same money, and you know, it was just kind of an uphill battle, unfortunately, because they just didn't come out with the most impressive specs for it, and so as a result, production ends in January, so it's just a few years these were on sale here, and so it's already been replaced in Europe, by the way, by the ENY1, which is possibly the least catchy name for a car ever, and ranks up there as some of the worst names, and it sounds like they're going to do more of these EN things going forward, which again, I don't understand. I would love to be in the boardroom whenever everyone's like, yeah, great name, double thumbs up. But apparently that's what's happening, and everyone's excited about these names at Honda. But regardless, that's basically just an electric HRV, roughly. You know, and so that's probably going to remain in Europe. We'll see what Honda does here for the States. But we'll hopefully see some stuff relatively soon, because they already announced last week, I covered that they're going to be they're going to be debuting a few concepts at CES that'll, you know, show what the path forward for Honda is like with the electric age. And I'm hoping that the Honda E maybe inspires some type of other fun retro thing here in the future, and they don't abandon the retro chic kind of thing, because I really think there's some appeal there, and I'd really love to see something, you know, take that form again. But we'll have to wait and see about that in just a few weeks. But anyway, really sad to see the Honda E go. And the last vehicle that actually already officially ended production was the Chrysler 300C, which finished up production recently. And all versions of the 300 will be done by the end of December. So they're really, you know, building them right up until the end of the 2023 model year, you know, up until December 31st. I think it'll just be mostly V6 versions for those. But yes, and then once it is done here in the next week or two, that will leave the Pacifica as the only vehicle in the Chrysler lineup until the electric crossover comes for Chrysler. They're saying in 2025, that's the next thing up for them. And they said they want to have them be like the electric startup kind of company. But it's called Chrysler. I feel like that has so much history and heritage, and also along with that the baggage of Chrysler, that I don't think anyone's going to approach Chrysler as some like startup hip trendy EV brand. You know, we will see. I wish Chrysler all the best, and we'll see, you know, what kind of products they come out with in a couple of years. But anyway, it's just sad to see the 300 go. I always thought the 300 was cool. I was really excited whenever it, you know, first came back there at the very end of the 90s into the early 2000s here, and it's been a great option for those that wanted something that's classier than a Charger, you know, but one of those same kind of bones. You know, it was really, you know, well done. And I have a lot to thank the Chrysler 300 for as well. So I'm going to cheers it this week, because not only was the Chrysler 300C review my second most watched car review this year, getting 100,000 views in a week, and just people really were excited about that car, but also the first generation 300 SRT8, that is one of my top 10 most watched review videos of all time. It's like 1.4 million views and counting. So I have to pour one out here for the 300. It's been good to me and to many others that have enjoyed it all these years. And so, yeah, I gotta do a little toast here to the 300, and you know, we'll see. Maybe they will, you know, bring it back as some kind of cool EV in a few years. You know, but if they're trying to be a tech startup, I'm worried they're not going to want to, you know, use any historic names. We'll see, you know, what ends up happening. So don't hold your breath for a new 300, but cheers to the current 300. What a great car. I even reviewed a V6 version not too long ago. Just, you know, I mean, they're all just really nice cruisers. And so, yeah, really sad to see it go. Cheers to the 300. And lastly, I want to thank all of you that are members of the Maran Motoring Club. So we did have a couple new members that were able to join this past week, thanks to the very generous gifting that was done during the live stream by the Truck and Car Guy and Kyle. Thank you both so much for your continued generosity. I'm sure that many of these members, you know, really appreciate getting the gifts as well. And So thanks, huge thanks first off to both of you. But I also want to give a big welcome to the new members here, Zachary Demchik and PK. So I hope you're both enjoying the membership perks so far. Be sure to join in the live stream if you can here this weekend, and all the following live streams where members do get that priority answering. And I hope all the members that get these gifts also like the memberships and the perks enough to consider rejoining here once that gifting period is over. But for anyone else that would like to join and get that priority answering and all the other membership perks as well, there's always join buttons here on the video page, on the channel page, and also a link in the description. But anyway, thank you all very much for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe to keep these videos coming. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.